I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Hello everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show devoted to board and card games where I do reviews, top 10s and basically tell you not to buy any board games. This is a top 10 list and it's been a while since I've done one actually, because mainly I've just had to get a few reviews out, a few podcasts, and I've been kind of busy. But I get the Patreons to vote on top 10 list ideas so they can submit their own ideas, and I put a few up, I put them on a poll, and then tend to do the choice, say 2, 3 max out of them, based in the order that they vote for. Well, I'm going slightly out of order this time, sorry Patreons. The one that they voted for will be a collaboration with Mark Monk from Ninja Geek Games. That's what I'm hoping for, so that will come soon as a live stream. So I thought I'd go for the second most popular out of the list to do myself, which is Sandbox Euro games. Now Sandbox is going to be a bit of a weird definition to go with, but essentially we're talking things like open world, do whatever you like, tons of options, play the game how you like. I mean, I like these games when they're on PC, on those sort of games, just being able to go, right, here I am, how should I go about doing this? Things like Valheim and that, always, you can do what you like, and yes, you have to build up to a point, but am I going to go do lots of hunting? Am I going to build my base here or over there? Am I going to go hunting there? Am I going to go into this crypt? You can decide what you want to do, and they're always good and entertaining. Well, for board games, even though most of these aren't in the higher areas of my top 100, I still enjoy these games. And I suppose the problem with sandbox games is that they tend to be harder to get right, because you've got to have all the options, you've got to have all the variety, but then you've got to make it a robust game as well, and not make it too overly complicated and not make it too overly long. And a lot of games in the sandbox genre tend to falter on one of those aspects, and certainly a few of the, well, I'd say honourable mentions, but a few of the mentions at the end of the video are certainly going to fit into that category. But I generally do like these. I like having a lot of options in games. Like, here I am, do I do this, or this? I don't know, I could pick one, but you know what, I'm just going to try a mixture of the lot, or I'm just going to do this solely. And that element of choice, the element of choose your own path to victory, is always something that I really enjoy. If the game's too linear and too constrained, then that irks me a little bit. I like to have a little bit of freedom of choice. Before I get on with it, just a quick word from the sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases, as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
Number 10 is a game that I do enjoy, but I have not played it in a long time. I've got it downstairs, it's in a big box, it's got the expansion so I can play it solo, it's all complete, it's got an insert, it's as good as complete as it can be, and it is enjoyable. The problem is, it's a lot of rules to absorb, a bit of a hog to get to the table, and I just haven't done so in ages. But when it comes to space games, this is probably the daddy of the sandbox genre, and that is Zyre Legends of Adrift System. This one basically just drops you into the middle of this galaxy with a ship, and you go do what you like. Are you going to be hunting down pirates? You're going to be the pirate yourself? You're going to do lots of trade? You're going to go explore lots of asteroid fields, or mine ice comets, or go do missions for various people? You're going to be a good guy, a bad guy? You name it, you have a lot of options here, and you basically choose the path you want to follow in order to score. I forget how the solo mode even works. I believe you're trying to race to a certain amount of points before an AI effectively does it for you. This is typically a game most people will only play with 2 players because of just how long it is when you play it in multiplayer, and I don't get 2-player games to the table, so this is a solo only experience for me. But yeah, it definitely does give you that spacey theme, and if it was a little easier to get to the table and a bit easier to get the rules down, then this would actually be higher on my list, despite the fact that it has a high level of randomness. And yeah, you expect that when you play this. You're not playing this kind of super seriously, really. You're telling your space story and seeing how things go, and you're trying to mitigate a bit of that luck, but you know, the randomness does come and kill you in certain annoying ways now and again. Don't try to fly through planetary shields, put it that way. So yeah, I'd like to play it more, it just hasn't really hit the table, but I certainly don't feel like culling it, because I hope that one day I will get it back to the table, and I'll probably enjoy it then. But it squeezes on at number 10. But my number 9 is a fairly recent review I did. It's an open box card game, sandbox card game, where you are exploring effectively kind of like an alternate history fantasy, well, not actually not alternate history, a future setting nature reserve. You know, it's all about national parks and conserving the environment after it's all gone to pot. This is Earthborn Rangers, which I believe is literally behind my back right there. I haven't managed to continue with it as much as I would like since I reviewed it, but you know, I've gone back to it every now and again. But this one is a card game. You have your deck of cards with your character. You customize your character deck slightly depending on which kind of path you want to follow, and then you have a starter selection of cards, but then as you go through all your encounters, you'll tweak your deck with different cards and upgrade and experience and all that. But where you go is pretty much up to you, really. I mean, there is a main plot, but how you go about the main plot is still open to some kind of flexibility, and even then, it's still pretty, you know, liberal as to how you want to approach it. But the side quests that come up and all the stuff you find could have you going off into all sorts of different directions. Because once you're done at the initial location, you have a big map in order to decide, right, do I want to go north, south, east, or west? And you basically just decide which way you want to go. You know what, I just fancy going this way this time and see what happens there. And every time you go into a location, the deck of like the kind of the location deck is tweaked to be based on that the terrain type of the location and maybe any landmarks, maybe people, and you'll explore through them. You know, you'll have the different hazards for terrain and animals that you come across, but then there'll be people of interest that you come across only in that particular location. It's definitely a approach how you like it game. I haven't had a chance to get it out to the table much lately, and it certainly could have maybe had a better rulebook. The rulebook was definitely not the best with this one compared to a lot of other games on this list, but it is a very good thematic solo venture. I don't think I would see much point playing this in a group. I mean, I have played it in a group and it is fine, but I've played it fine solo. I suppose you could play it two-handed or play it two-player. That would be fine. 3 and 4 player seems a little bit excess, but it's a good little sandbox one if you want to play something that's more environmentally friendly, I guess is the phrase, but it's just pretty solid all round. Just haven't, again, got it to the table much.
Okay, that's a start. That's very earth friendly.
But number 8 is a theme that I don't even tend to go mad for, really. It's not one that I watch movies for, apart from maybe 2, and even then that's mainly because they have other elements to them. I don't really play PC games based on this theme. I haven't really played any other games based on this theme, bar one that I can think of. So, you know, Westerns are not typically my thing.
Clint Eastwood never wore anything like this.
Western Legends, on the other hand, though, is a very good sandbox game. I've got way too much content for it, though, which has probably hindered my ability to actually get it played more often, because it's a lot of rules to absorb when you start throwing in all the expansions, and I need to find a way to store it better. I have yet to find a way to do so, but hopefully I'll be able to figure something out, because the last thing I want to do is buy that stupid big box, the one that's ridiculously expensive and has a crappy insert in it. Yeah, I don't want to do it that way. I've got to find some way to store it in the original box, you know, in a way that's easy and quick to set up. But yeah, you want a Western sandbox game, this is basically your bread and butter. I mean, what do you want to do? Prospecting for gold? Do you want to go hunt bandits? Do you want to be a bandit? Do you want to be a law enforcer or not? Do you want to go rob a train? Do you want to go play poker? High stakes, low stakes? You know, go to a different city maybe? Train to another area? Rustle up cows? You know, do various missions? There's so much you can do in this game, it's unreal, particularly with the expansion that opens up the extra map, and you do whatever you want to get the legendary points that you need. What items do you want? Do you want to get a really good horse, a really good shotgun, a really good revolver? Are you trying to be the best law enforcer or the most renowned infamous bandit, or are you trying to be the best gambler in the case? I love being the gambler. I love going down that route because I like poker. I love Texan Hold'em poker. Played it a lot when I was younger, and I love doing the poker in this game because it's just good fun just doing it. It really does get you in that mood. But again, ease of play is what hurts it and brings it back down this list. And you're noticing this as a theme with a lot of these sandbox games. They have so many rules that it's quite hard to get them to the table often unless you do it frequently. And these aren't games that typically tend to come out frequently. But Western Legends makes for a very good convention experience where somebody is like, people are already prepared for what's to come, and you get a reasonable sized group, although I don't recommend going above 4. I think anything above 4 players is a complete waste of time, and even then 4 requires you to know the game well and maybe play it with less of a cap on the victory condition. 3 is a pretty good number though. And yeah, it's just a really good, solid game. If you want a Western game, that Sandbox, this is the one you go for. Number 7 is probably the most recent review I've done. Or is it? No, actually, I think I did this one before Earthborn Rangers, but not by far. This is, there was a game that came out in January called, a Kickstarter, it was fulfilling around then, called Mythwind. Check out my review video for more details as to why I don't believe that's a game you should go for. Didn't give it the highest rating ever, but I compared it to another game which I think did a similar thing but much better, and that is Lands of Galzier. This is from Snowdell Design. And this one uses their cool, like really cutesy animals with the lovely artwork and that, but this is an open world sandbox story game. And we're talking super light story game. I mean, there is not a lot of rules in here. Your character has 3 slots for items and you keep chopping and changing these as you go through the game. There is an app that assists you with the story elements, of which you typically get a choice like, do you have this keyword? If you do, you can do this. If not, try this choice or this choice. And you've got these little, it's called a little skill tree thing where throughout the game you can constantly keep sort of tweaking what skills you've got. Like, are you really good in survival? Are you really good at fighting? You're really good at negotiation? That sort of thing. And you just basically pick a route, go that way, do some light side quests, and tell your own story. That's pretty much it. There's no overall game arc. You just play essentially the equivalent of like a week in game time, and you see whether you've got enough reputation to, win or at least do well at the end of it. But other than that, you just carry on and on and on. Mythwind tried to do something similar, but that one basically got you to do boring Euro mechanics over and over and over again with no end. This one at least is getting you to, do lots of cool little short stories that are nice and straightforward, and there's very little setup in this game. The save feature is really good, so you can whip this one out fairly quickly. I mean, so far I've done 3 games that are a nightmare to get set up and played. Lands of Galzier is not a difficult one to get set up and played. If I want to bring it out now, I could bring it out and learn it in pretty much like 10 minutes just to recap the rules, and then I'm off and get going again. And then I could rinse and repeat as many weeks as I like. If you're looking for light storytelling, this is definitely, I think, the one to go for. It's just such a smooth, elegant design with enough variety to keep you finding something just a little bit new each time, whether it's changing locations on the board or just equipping yourself with different items. And you can kind of cherry pick how you want to do. I mean, at the moment, I think I'm pretty good at survival and negotiation. I think that's the 2 I've focused on, and sort of ranged attacks. But, you could be a melee brawler. You could be, really good at, I don't know, is science one of them? I forget. Well, oh no, I'm a very observant range specialist. Yeah, that's what I am, observant and ranged. So you could be a melee survival expert. You could be focused on other skills, and it just gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of choice, which is what you want from a sandbox game. And yet this one doesn't burden you with 100 rules to work out how you do it. Right, we are done for the moment with story games, and to be honest, I must admit, there's not many of those left on the list. Most of these are Euro games in a sense, and yes, you can have a sandbox Euro game because it can be a Euro game where it gives you so many options it's ridiculous. This is, again, kind of a Euro hybrid. You are technically telling your own story, and you can tell the story how you like, but at the end of the day, you are pushing cubes around a lot and essentially choosing which cards you want to get So it's not necessarily a story-based roleplay game, although you could roleplay it to an extent. This is Vindication. Vindication from Orange Nebula is basically the Sandbox Euro that a lot of people are aware of. You basically have these attributes, free primary, free secondary. Your cubes are in these, which dictate your own character's attributes, and you're trying to not be a scumbag anymore. You landed on this island and you're a scumbag and you got to try and vindicate yourself. How you do it? Entirely up to you. You have all these different color cards of different categories: purple relic items, orange monsters to go kill, green personality traits to develop, and then you've got the companions for blue, yellow, and red. You know, melee fighters versus, you know, spiritual survivalists, and maybe versus scientific and intellectuals. And you can do what you want. You know, do you want to have a really fast mount and ride Mothra? In which case, go ahead and do that. Do you want to beef yourself up as a melee brawler with a bunch of like melee characters? And by all means, go do that. Are you happy with slow speed, fast speed? Up to you. Do you want to get loads of relic items that have, you know, that you can power up and, you know, give you really cool abilities? Or do you want to just get a bunch of personality traits that give you like more scoring opportunities or some other cool powers? Maybe I'll go kill some monsters. I mean, I've got a bit of courage. I could go kill that monster. That would give me a nice scoring thing that I'm going for. There's so much freedom here. You do what you want to do based on the attributes that you've got, and the whole Euro side of the game is micromanaging those attributes in such a way that it's efficient. It's a really solid game with a variable game end. You've got different endgame triggers, and different ones will come out as the game progresses until eventually one is met. So the game could take 40 minutes, it could take a good couple of hours, which is not always the best thing, I admit, with some games, but here I actually don't mind it so much. You know it's coming, so it doesn't necessarily creep up on you unexpectedly, you know, with the exception of when a new one gets revealed and somebody's already done it, although the likelihood of that is pretty much nil. Never really happens, but yeah, it's got a few too many expansions to it. I have not even tried Chronicles, or whatever the new one is that adds more story aspects, because frankly, I need to relearn all the rules again, and it's a little bit of a bloated mess at the moment. So it does have some problems. This is another one of those occasions where bloat actually hurts the game a bit. But base set Vindication is still really good fun. You just need to find your set of mini expansions where you vary the locations that you're happy with, stick to those, and then stop varying the game. But there's certainly a bit of content that have come from the Kickstarters, like Hamlets and things like that, where I could not care less if I use them or not, and they're just basically sat there going to waste. But at some point, really must get this out with the Chronicles expansion and see what it's like. But if you've played with that expansion, I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments and tell me what it's like. Is it as good as it could be, or is it a waste of time? Let me know your thoughts. My number 5, I would have been castrated if I hadn't put this on the list. Yes, a lot of people would certainly have expected this because it's on my shelf, it's one that I've really enjoyed, and certainly with the expansion Unfinished Business, it got a lot better. Of course, I needed to have some kind of sandbox Star Wars game on my list, and of course Outer Rim is the choice to go with. You do want to get it with Unfinished Business though. It's definitely lacking in a few areas if you play just the base set, not just on the variety front, but also with a couple of quality of life improvements that the expansion brings. But with the expansion, you can now travel around the sectors a lot easier. You have more variety with the cards. You have ambition paths that you can go through, which give you kind of like a personal story arc and a little bit of guidance for how to play. But it's still effectively a sandbox Star Wars game. I mean, you are a bounty hunter.
I'm the disintegration machine. Want a guy disintegrated? Get me integrated. That's Dengar's motto.
You're going to hunt people for bounties. You're going to side with the rebels or the Imperials a bit more. Maybe do some deals with the Hutts. You're going to grab yourself a load of cool gadgets and items and weapons. You're going to upgrade your ship, and if so, what do you fancy? Do you want Boba Fett's Slave 1? Do you want the Millennium Falcon? Do you want IG-88, kind of Raptor droid ship? I forget what it's called. You can kind of decide exactly what kind of bounty hunter you want to be. You're just carrying on until you get to a certain amount of fame points, and whoever gets there first is the winner. So yeah, not a game I recommend playing with a lot of players. I mean, I've played it with 2 and it's been good fun. 3 would probably be the absolute max I recommend, but I've played this more as a solo game, particularly with the expansion included, and the solo mode is actually a pretty solid affair. The AI will go around and will be slowly leveling up its fame, so you do have somebody to race against effectively, but you get to play the game and tell what kind of Star Wars story you want. It's I really do recommend you get Unfinished Business though. If you try it with just the base set, I worry that you might not like it as much as you could, and you're missing out on some good quality of life improvements. But if somebody is able at a convention to show you Outer Rim with the expansion included and teach you the game, not something I'm going to be able to do at the Games Expo, I'm afraid, but certainly if somebody else can do it, then by all means try and jump in on one of those, because I can't think of a better Star Wars sandbox game.
This is the way.
Number 4, we're back to a Euro. Big, pure Euro with a ton of options. This is the direct killer of its predecessor, which a lot of people still really enjoy and I respect, but due to its restrictiveness, its reliance on having to go get children, more workers and stuff, it puts me off wanting to play that particular game. Caverna killed Agricola.
I'll give you a piece of
Yeah, that's already caused a bit of a ruckus, you know, controversial. Are we past this yet? But yeah, Caverna is a pure sandbox game, which is sitting right there with Forgotten Folk. Do not get the second one, the Fiendish, was it Forgotten Fiends or whatever it's called, I forget. But yeah, the second expansion to Caverna with the orcs, do not get it. Check out my review video to find out why, but trust me, you do not want that expansion. Forgotten Folk though, pretty good way to add some cool asymmetric powers that can kind of guide new players or just give you some more variety. But even just base set Caverna, I mean, you have got all those buildings that you can like choose from. You've got the different like routes to take, you know, and it's all open and uncapped, which is the better thing, because Agricola caps you on all your stuff. You need to get a bit of everything, which means you're not truly differentiated, and if you end up with too many vegetables, for example, it caps you on how many points you get. Caverna doesn't. Do I want to do nothing but farm wheat and have all the wheat ever? Well, good, go do that. You won't have a cap on points. Do you want all the cows? Do you want all the donkeys? Do you want just a sheep farm? You know, okay, fine. Do you want to do a bit of variety? Then great. Do you want to go outside or stay in your cave? That's entirely up to you. I had a really weird one where I managed to get all 6 of my workers out as an albino dwarf faction. So I got all my workers and never ventured outside. That was a weird game I was playing, but again, I can choose to do that and see what happens. You know, I was doing a lot of donkey mining. So I got a lot of mines up and running, a few donkeys, used gems to get me past some stucks, but yeah, I was doing quite a lot of that with a bit of adventuring on the side. You can choose what you want to do with this, and with the Forgotten Folk, you then have the asymmetric factions that give you some restrictions and some other benefits, and they make you play in lots of different styles as well. It just truly is one of those games that you can do whatever you feel like, although a surprise to hear, in terms of how many options you have, it still pales in comparison to some other Euros. Right, but number 3, you might think that this is not a sandbox game, but I had a deep think about this, and I think it is, so ha. Now, this is a Euro game, yep, through and through. It definitely has a theme and certainly an interesting setting, a very unique setting compared to others, but I believe this is a sandbox game because you have so many options as to what you want to do, and how you choose to live your life is entirely up to you. Oh yes, I consider Pursuit of Happiness there to be a sandbox game, and I mean, it's gotta be, surely, because you have all the options in the world. Yes, you're trying to get the most long-term happiness points, but you can decide whether you're going to get a bunch of projects and do tons of those. Are you going to hoard items? Are you going to go on lots of activities? Are you going to get a job? You don't have to. You can get a job if you want. Do you want a little job? Do you want to own your own little store? Do you want to be like President of the United States? You know, really demanding job. Do you want a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Up to you. You can have 2 partners if you really want, although good luck with that. It's pretty hard to maintain it.
Snoo! Can't we just cuddle?
But you can, you know, decide I'm not going to have a partner at all. You know, I don't need a partner or a job. I'm just going to do paper rounds the rest of my life and, you know, have a nice simple life where I just do lots of little projects like grow a bonsai tree or become an activist or the leader of a biker gang and a ninja. You know, all these weird things. I can be a health freak. I'm just going to do swimming, I'm going to do running, I'm going to do yoga, and I'm just going to be the healthiest man alive by the time I die. You can do whatever you like to get those long-term happiness points. And of course there's an efficiency to it. You know, you've got the free resources, interactivity, influence, and book knowledge, and you have to micromanage these resources in order to find an efficient path to getting lots of points. but there are lots of paths available and you can just do what you fancy. And that's just a base set. Throw in the expansions as well, particularly community, which I really like. And you've got like the, doing stuff for your local neighborhood as well. Again, more choices, more options. And sometimes you'll do it because it's efficient. Sometimes you'll do it because it's just thematically amusing. This is such a great Euro game. One of my favorites, one of the most unique themes out there for a Euro, effectively the game of life as a Euro game, as I call it. But it's just one of my favorite Euros that I love to play, particularly in its big box form where I've got so many cards that's spilling out and those jumbo resources, so everything looks like massive hourglasses and stuff. It's never going to leave the collection. I love it too much. And this is if I play it multiplayer or solo, though granted 4 players a bit long. 3 player I think is a good cap, 2 player works great, but even solo Pursuit of Happiness is pretty good. You have to reach a certain point target and achieve some goals, so it's not just beat your own score, but then you have all the options available as to how you want to do it. It's a sandbox. If you dispute so, then please let me know why it's not a sandbox, but I feel I shouldn't be getting a lot of blowback with this one.
Oh God, you're killing me!
My number 2 and my number 3 could have probably switched around, it was kind of either or at this point. This is another space game, and you're probably thinking, finally we can have the space game that I like, Mr. Twilight Imperium. No, it's not Twilight Imperium, alright? We'll talk about that later. This is my go-to space game, and it's definitely a sandbox. I mean, you can approach it how you like. There's a lot of different options. It's been sitting there for ages. It's there. It's Empires of the Void 2, of course. I mean, I loved the original Empires of the Void. Second version even better. But yes, you're trying to get the most victory points, but how are you going to do it? I have a colony ship. Right, here's a bunch of alien planets. Do I go conquer them for their resources, or do I negotiate with them, have a peace treaty, and we have now allies to use in combat or for their abilities? Do I upgrade all my techs? There's a lot of techs on my board. I've got 3 different types of buildings I can build. Do I spam a ton of academies, or do I get a little bit of everything? Each has their pros and cons. Do I go spread out all over the place and just occupy a load of little planets? Do I do a bunch of missions? There's a bunch of delivery escort missions, or I could just do these other missions. There's all sorts that you can do, and I feel like it's kind of ripe for an expansion, actually, to add even more options. I don't need necessarily more complications, but I think an expansion to Empires of the Void 2 would be due. Add more cards. Just add more cards for variety. You could add maybe a different couple extra planets with new factions. That could work. And maybe just 1 or 2 other ways for you to score points. I would be totally down for some extra content for it, but even with the box as it is, I mean, it's not a small box, you can see it right there, it's got a lot in there, and this one just gives me that feeling of exploring space and meeting new alien factions. A lot of space games don't do this. I mean, Zyre does that to a point, although you're not really negotiating with other factions or species, you're more just flying around the galaxy. Here, you actually see the faces of the creatures that you're either conquering or negotiating with.
Hello, my baby! Hello, my honey!
It just creates kind of like more of a galaxy full of life. I would certainly love to play this as a kind of app version. I think there actually was an app version for this, but I hear it wasn't very good. A way to play the board game on Steam, and the last I heard about it was that the app wasn't very good. So I'd be interested to know if anybody's got any feedback on that one, but it's not something I've been desperate to, look up because of mainly time. But sorry Twilight fans, you're not on the list. Empires of the Void 2 is.
Just accept it.
And my number 1, of course, most of you have called this, it's the ultimate Euro sandbox. There is no sandbox Euro that I can think of that has got more stuff in here than this. I mean, if you know of any, then by all means let me know, because I would certainly want to try it. But I already mentioned the effective predecessor to this one, or at least from my perspective of playing it, this is normally restricted to 2 players, but it can be expanded to 3. This has more options in a Euro game than anything I have ever encountered, and you might be thinking Feast of Odin, but no, not on my list, although it could qualify as a sandbox Euro. I of course mean Fields of Arle. Fields of Arle is just a fun Euro. I love playing this, mostly as a solo game because I don't tend to get 2 players to the table, although playing this with 3 players is still good fun, if you can find a table big enough to host everything. But It's just the swarm of options. It's beat your own score when you play it solo. Yeah, I know that's a bit of a pain. You know, rankings this is not my favorite way to have like I would have liked there to have been some kind of an AI. I mean, I think there is one. I think there's like a restriction on where you can go worker placement wise, but that's about it. But wow, what do you want to do? Okay, let's see. I want to farm peat off my land and, you know, cook bread. Okay, fine. Maybe I'll grow some animals and slaughter them for food. Maybe I'll slaughter some cows and make leather jackets out of them. Maybe I'll extend my dikes all the way so I can reach the shoreline. I could grow some wheat, grow some flax, maybe grow some forests, you know, so I've got a good wood supply. You know what? My tools aren't particularly good. I could level up a few of those tools. The local villagers could do with some food and some supplies. You know what? I'll make some woolen coats, go trade it with the villagers down there. That'll give me some points. Could build some vehicles. I could do with another cart, you know, maybe a few wagons. That would allow me to get to the villagers easier. I could maybe, let's see, I mean, cooking bread is nice and so slaughtering animals, but maybe I should just grow lots of wheat and just have that as my food source. That is doable. There's buildings over there. Well, I could construct a castle or two, maybe a couple of barns, you know, a couple of things like that. Wow, this game has just got so much in it, and that's before you even add the tea and trade expansion. Now I can deal with tea. Now I can export to different, you know, a few different countries. Now I can build fishing boats. Now I can build ditches around my dikes. You name it, this game has it. You are so bereft of choice. It is somewhat overwhelming for new players, but it's got a brilliant system where you can pick pretty much any route you like, and there's a good chance it will score you a decent amount of points. I've had very tight finishes with this. Now granted, you obviously are trying to play more efficiently than the opponent, but you don't have to think, I suppose I should go with the animal and slaughtering strategy, because that is way better than the growing wheat and baking bread strategy. Not necessarily. Everything scores you points. It is a point salad all the way. Everything is points, even half points. And so you can pick whichever route you want to do. We won't know who's doing best until the very end, and then it's a tight finish for those scores. It's got so much options though. Oh man, I mean, does any Euro game have more options than this? I need to know, because if so, I need to play it. Because I would certainly like to see about that. You know, a lot of people would be thinking Feast of Odin. Feast of Odin's fine, it would be in my teens, I guess. It's got a lot of different worker placement spots, and you can certainly decide how you want to go and approach it. It just would never make my top 10. Fields of Arle, though, it doesn't need an expansion. It's got an insert, it certainly needs one of them. But it's just all the options. I love it, I love it, I love it. And this is one that, even though I don't get to the table as often as I would like to, the desire to get it out is always there. I'm always noticing it and going, when can I play Fields of Arle again? That would be really solid, but maybe I should get it out as a free player one time and have a, you know, cool setup with that, because I feel like I want to show more people this game. It's just one of those that is such a good amount of fun to have all those choices. So my number one, easily, Fields of Arle. Okay, just a few mentions. I mean, some of these are kind of honourable mentions, although on this occasion I think it's more that these are games that I either like or don't particularly like, and I just need to explain my reasonings. I haven't got that long on the camera battery, but let's see. Sleeping Gods. I'm kind of done with campaign games, as I mentioned in a recent podcast. I like it. It's a pure sandbox through and through, and it is an enjoyable game. I just don't know if I'm desperate to commit myself to another run through after you know, when you've got to control 9 characters as a solo player. Distance Guys, I feel might have done a better job of it, but I just don't know if I want to commit to, again, another campaign game. I'm just like, can we just have scenario games now? So I do like the game and I do recommend it, but it's just not one that I'm going to play again. Feast for Odin, I've already mentioned, gives you all the action spaces, like 40 to 60 odd action spaces. It's kind of ridiculous. But, you know, the theme is kind of lost when you're basically playing Tetris with all this loot that you've got and, like, taking up islands and stuff. So it's a very abstract mechanical game, which stops me wanting to play it on a regular basis, particularly as it goes way too long when you've got 3 to 4 players. This is really the one that you just want to play solo, frankly, because there's not really much incentive for other players there. Yeah, the worker placement might block some spots, but the solo mode already has a very good way of simulating that. So the need to want to play this with other players just isn't really there. Some people suggested Scythe. I'm not sure if Scythe is a sandbox game. I mean, I suppose you do have some options, but you're mainly going down one of 4 routes. You know, you're going to go full buildings, you're going to go full, you know, sort of combat power, you're going to go full economy, or you're going to do, what's the other one? That's pretty good. Oh yeah, or get the things that allow you to do stuff with your neighbours, you know, those ones. I forget what they're called, that use as food. But, you know, there's not a huge amount of variety in that one for paths, so I'm curious as to whether that counts. So I wasn't prepared to stick it on the list, but even then, it wouldn't make my top 10. Feudum, definitely a sandbox game. You have got a lot of options as to what you want to do in Feudum, and I really love the guild mechanics in this. I think they're brilliant, but the rulebook is a mess. There's a lot of rules to learn. The graphic design is not particularly good. I hear they're doing another edition of this. I don't think it will be enough to bring me back because I just think that they're going to just have it still bloated with too much in it. I mean, the mini expansions are enough to tell you that. They really need a second edition where they can keep that cool guild system but streamline it down, cut out the fat, and make the rulebook solid, and you would have a banger that I would want to have in my collection. As it is, this is a game that I certainly enjoyed playing but would never want to own. Mage Knight. Do I need to say much more about Mage Knight? I hated it when I played it years and years ago. I might like it a little bit more now if I tried it again, but I've no incentive to. I don't want to play it, so there.
You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep just now.
Merchants and Marauders. I played it once or twice, I think, ages ago. It's a sandbox pirate game, definitely fits the scenario, but I don't remember liking it that much. Or at least not enough that I would want to own it. I thought, this is fine. This seems a little bit unbalanced. Like, I feel like doing like fighty stuff is more better than doing the other stuff. I couldn't remember which way around it was. The rules were a little bit clunky. You know, it needed a bit of streamlining in places. But it still was a fairly okay game, but just not one that I was desperate to own or, you know, try and get to the table. I mean, it's quite a long game. Definitely wouldn't want to play this with a lot of players, so I don't know if I've really got the incentive to buy it and relearn it. I just remember playing a mate's copy. Twilight Imperium. Look, Twilight Imperium has some good stuff for it, but there is no game that can justify an 8-hour time limit to play this game. It's just ridiculous. You know, the game is a bit of a luck fest in some respects. It's pretty much a case of, right, everybody go, cluster in the middle on Mechatol Rex, and some people get left out, and the others just duke it out in the middle with combats that take forever, and until somebody sneaks to 10 points. But the game is fine, and I like the variety in it. I just would rather play Inscription if I want that theme, you know, just for a cool roll and write. But no game deserves to take like 6 to 8 hours. There's no game at all. I mean, Hegemony takes me a good 4 hours to play. That one justifies its length, but even then, if it went any longer, I think I would go a bit mad, and it's already quite long as it is. But 6 to 8 hours. I mean, when I see people from my Portsmouth club play this, they play these at events and they start at like 10 o'clock in the morning and they're not finished until like the early evening. And I'm just like, no game justifies this. I would be bored out of my head. I wouldn't be invested. And if I was losing, which you can do, I mean, you can have a bad start with those really dumb exploration tokens that basically go, oh, something kills one of my ships. Oh, great. Well, there's not much I could do about that, but that sucks. Oh, you got extra resources. Well, you've got a leg up, and much like Stellaris, lots of little things you get early then compound into the late game. But yeah, if you're losing Twilight Imperium, you've got no chance of winning. You're stuck there for a long time just going through the motions. Pseudo knockout is not enjoyable in long games, people, so no, I would never put this on my top 10. And then finally, Firefly. I respect Firefly. I love the TV show. I like the movie. But Firefly, the board game, is a very long and very random luck fest. It's got the theme and it's got the coolness of, ooh, what do I want to do? Do I want to get these jobs, upgrade my ship, get these people? You know, can I get Kaylee on my ship? That'd be fantastic. You know, do I want to work with these people? But it's too long. I mean, this game goes on for hours and hours and hours, particularly when you've got expansions thrown in, and it is mostly a luck fest. You know, your game is not won because of skill, or like making meaningful choices. It's usually won just by whether you're lucky enough to get through a lot of these missions, particularly the ones that are based on essentially a die roll. It's, you know, if it was a bit more deterministic and a bit more controllable, I would probably really like this game. But as such, I respect it for doing justice to its theme. It certainly is doing justice on that respect. And it's got a lot of fans, and I can see why they would like it, but it just doesn't suit me really.
You're going to burn in a very special level of hell.
So yeah, there's a list of Sandbox games. If there are any other Sandbox games, by all means get them in the comments. I'd be interested to know. I've heard about Lost Valley, never played it, never even seen a copy. There's a game I would really like to try that showed up in some Sandbox charts called BIOS BIOS Megafauna or something. It's something like that. I don't know. It's a BIOS game. I've not heard of this particular type of game, but it's meant to be this really heavy, big one that's kind of got like a dominant species vibe to it, where you started off as like vertebrates or primordial ooze or whatever, and then you spread out and you, I don't know, BIOS up. I'm not entirely sure. I forget what its name is. It's some weird name beginning with M. But I would like to try that game if somebody shows me at a convention. The theming of it sounds right up my street, and if it is a true sandbox game like it claims to be, it definitely would get my vote on that respect. So yeah, definitely one on my try list, but yeah, will I ever see it? I have no idea, because I certainly don't know if you can buy it. Pretty sure it's not available anywhere, but by all means, somebody tell me if it is, I might even look into it. But are there any other sandbox ones I can think of? There weren't that many, and I can't think of many off the top of my head, but I'm sure you lot have got some suggestions, so by all means, get them in the comments. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube, and let me know your comments as I described. Check out the video reviews that I have done for some of the stuff I mentioned. Let's see, which games have I done? I have definitely done Star Wars Outer Rim Unfinished Business. You definitely want to check that out. I reviewed Earthborn Rangers. I reviewed Lands of Galzier. I think I reviewed Zyre Legends of a Drift System or about. I'm not entirely sure. You might have to look that one up. I've definitely done videos on the Pursuit of Happiness, like complete comprehensive guides to the expansions and that, so by all means check out those. But yeah, there's quite a lot I've done, so by all means, if you want to find out more details on some of those games, look them up and see if I've done a video for them. Until next time, regardless of whether you want to play in the sand pit for a long time or not, it's still only a game, so bye for now.